So, what are some examples of movies that meet these criteria? You know, that have a good story, that are well cast, that are well directed, that are well shot.
Well, so I sort of made this list. It's not a comprehensive list by any means because there's a lot of movies, and a lot of them also get lumped into the next sort of section of our conversation. But when I'm looking at a film in general, one of the criteria that I think of it being just a really good film, and this I came up with this primarily just to help me narrow down what I think are my favorite, just my list of my all-time favorite movies. It pains me a little bit and it angers a lot of people for me to say this, but I immediately, one of the things that I do is cut out something that is based on pre-existing source material. And I don't mean
Okay.
something that's based on an idea that the guy got from somewhere, multiple ideas, because that's what all stories are, or from it being something that's based on history, because that would also kind of be ridiculous. So one of these doesn't really, it almost fails because of this. Uh, but I have a reason that I accept, that I made an exception for it.
Explain your logic behind that premise, though, where you discount the movies that are based on
Because at
pre-existing
that
source
point,
material.
because if you start with source material and say, "Hey, I'm going to make this into a movie," a lot of the work of the film has been done for you. The structure of the story is already there. The characters are already there and developed. You don't have to write the story beginning, middle, and end. You can just read the story beginning, middle, and end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your interpretation of it can be different and can be good or bad. But I usually tend to discount movies that are based off of pre existing source material, particularly books, because of that. Because at that point, it is like a good film should be a good film and nothing else. Like the film should not be good because the book was good. Like if the book is already really good, the film has a better chance of being good. You understand what I'm saying there?
It has
It's
a
like
better
you're trying.
it has a better chance, but we both know of a lot of examples of movies that aren't adapted well.
We do, but they're also not on my list.
Fair enough. But that means the potential for screwing it up is still there.
There is potential for screwing it up, and I'm not going to pretend that there isn't potential for screwing it up. But that's why I take, you know, movies that are based off of books out of the conversation. Also, because the Lord of the Rings trilogy would just win every time
Why can't it?
because it's the greatest story ever written, aside from the story of salvation.
Say you brought to
It is
mind
the greatest epic tale ever told, and thus adapted into film, it becomes the greatest film trilogy ever made. So it's more just a genuine handicap to keep the Lord of the Rings from winning every time.
or the Passion of the Christ.
That too. It's just genuine handicap to keep those things from constantly winning all the time.
Fair enough.
It makes
This
the
will
contest more fair for other films, is what I'm saying.
well, this will make it work for your personal rankings. We'll give it that.
Yes. So two films that go off of that meet these criteria that I think are just excellent films because of how they're told. And a lot of other historians are going to be mad at me because I use these films, but I don't care. I think they're good movies. I'm going to get to my opinion of historical films in a moment. Gladiator and The Last Samurai. Two fantastic early 2000s heroes' journeys and heroes' stories. Gladiator is technically a revenge story, but it is, I think it's a different kind of revenge story. And it's more based off of the fact that I don't know the full story that it's supposed to be based on, but as far as I understand, it's kind of purely based on the fact that Emperor Commodus died in the Colosseum
Hmm.
because he wanted to partake in the games and got himself killed. So they wrote this. So this entire movie was written based on that.
Yeah, I could work with that.
Also, because an actor that I do genuinely like, particularly in the first decade of 21st century is Russell Crowe. I think he's just a fantastic actor, and I like seeing him in things. The Last Samurai is kind of for another reason, because you see this this soldier that is just jaded, this jaded drunken soldier find something that is actually worth fighting for, that he's willing to protect from something else.
Against
And
hopeless
it
odds too.
yeah, because that is kind of how the Battle of Shirayama did go. They put up a really good fight, but ultimately there were only 40 of them left, and they decided, well, we're not going to bring ourselves in, and we're just going to charge. We know it's hopeless and we know we're going to die, but what we're fighting for is worth fighting and dying for. Which I think is what that film should inspire in you. And Gladiator it's a different kind of revenge story, because yes, Maximus's purpose for his climb through the Colosseum, through the fight circuit, is it's driven by his desire to kill Commodus for what he did. But ultimately he winds up picking up other things and adding on things that wind up either equaling or superseding vengeance as a reason for him to fight and kill Commodus. Like, I think at one point he even considers sparing Commodus briefly and turning it around another way. And
Yeah, I'm
ultimately, it's
conscious of.
Commodus that spells his own end by locking himself in an arena with the man that has vowed to kill him.
Yeah, it's hard to parse that out because, in one sense, I could compare that to John Wick for the reasons that we talked about. But on the other end, I know based off of common sense and just intuition, it's like, no, these things are not the same.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on why, but they're not the same.
Because he also realizes that he's fighting to free the other gladiators. He is fighting for somebody else's freedom, which is why the song that plays during the credits that Enya sings is called Now We Are Free.
Great song, too.
It is. And the Clamavide Profundis version is even better.
I need to listen to that now.
Oh, it's excellent. It's been out for a while. I think that's one of the first non-religious songs that they did, but it's excellent.
If enough of y'all subscribe and Clamavide Profundis decides to de-anonymize themselves, we should have them on.
Yeah, that would be great. Although
Be
keeping
awesome.
themselves anonymous is also still a good choice.
Yeah.
I won't demand that they de-anonymize themselves.
Same.
So,
But if they ever do, just saying. Just saying. You got a couple massive fans right here. So
I also don't, by the same logic of me discounting things that are based on other things, that are based on pre-existing works, I don't discount sequels necessarily. I probably will have to discount remakes, even though there are some remakes that are just absolutely spectacular. Particularly if I haven't seen the original. I was going to say 310 to Yuma, because that's a very, very good movie. The more recent one with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. But, based on my previous criteria, that one is off of that list at least.
mm-hmm.
The top list. But things that do definitely belong on that list are most John Wayne movies. There are some that are based on previous works. Hondo is the one that comes specifically to mind because that's a Louis L'Amour novel. But I think there are 3 John Wayne movies, at least that I have seen, that would probably stand out to most people. Well, 2 of them will. One of them might not. Because even though I think it's the greatest movie ever made of all time, period, full stop, there's a surprising number of people that had never seen it or even heard of it. So one of these that I think everybody has heard of is The Searchers. This is a John Wayne film directed by John Ford, and it was considered by John Wayne himself to be the greatest film he ever starred in.
Before you launch into why, I'll represent the masses and say I've never heard of the Searchers before tonight. But
Again,
perhaps shame
maybe
on
also
us.
because inside I'm at least 3 times of my actual age. But The Searchers, which is also in a sense a revenge story, but doesn't completely end with vengeance. And John Wayne considered it to be it was his favorite of all the movies that he had made. Uh, it's the one that my grandmother genuinely does not like and refuses to watch.
Hmm.
Uh, because the character that John Wayne plays in that movie is a horrid, horrid man. And up until the last about 4 seconds of the movie, he is, or up until the last, couple of minutes of the movie, he is awful. And I'll let you watch it yourself. But basically, the impetus of the movie is that John Wayne is this former Confederate soldier who comes home to I think his brother and his family. So his brother and the brother's wife and 3 children. And while he's away, the sheriff who also or maybe he's the captain of the Texas Rangers who also happens to be the local preacher. Uh, Asks for his help chasing down either rustlers or renegade Comanche, and I think it's the renegade Comanche. Well, while they're gone, the renegade Comanche, or not the renegade Comanche, but oh yeah, the renegade Comanche. While they're gone, the Comanche attack the farmhouse, and the brother and his wife and son are killed instantly, immediately, and the 2 daughters are carried off by the Comanche. Well, John Wayne's character, whose name is Ethan, by the way, immediately just goes after them to try to get the girls back. Somewhere along the trail, they come across where the older of the 2 girls has been killed by the Comanche and just left there. And that's a hard thing to watch because it's that time in film where they didn't show anything gruesome, but knowing that it's there and having to imagine it almost makes your skin crawl even more. But basically, for the rest of the movie, they're trying to go and get the younger girl, who I think is about 7 when the Comanche first take her.
Hmm.
And when they find her, it's a few years later, and she's basically completely brainwashed. She is war leader's, one of this war leader's concubines, essentially. She's completely brainwashed. She speaks Comanche. She has her hair in Comanche braids. She's wearing Comanche clothes. And she tries to tell them to leave uh, because they took too long to come and get her. So she just gave herself over to the Comanche and just basically became Comanche. Well, now at this point, for the entire rest of the movie, John Wayne's character has his mind made up that he is just going to kill her because he has this bitter hatred of Indians and he outright rejects her as being his blood kin, even though she actually is. And the one that wants to help her is the part Indian that isn't even related to them. And he considers her to be basically his little sister because he was raised partially by her parents. But basically, John Wayne completely disowns her and says that the best thing for her would be just to kill her because she's not white anymore and she's not even really Comanche. So we should just kill her.
Hmm.
And the end of the movie is that he has an opportunity to do that, but then doesn't, and he can't bring himself to do it. And then he picks her up and carries her home and brings her back to the neighbors who basically take over from there and finish raising her. And everybody goes inside except him. He turns around and walks back out into the desert because now his job is done and there's nothing left for him to do. And also just this idea that he doesn't belong with them because of who he is and what he does. So that's The Searchers. It's a much better movie than that. than what I described. I gave sort of the synopsis because there's the way that John Ford directs a movie is excellent. It's a way that movies used to be directed a long time ago, but they aren't anymore. Uh, for the most part, is there's an overall plot and then there's a whole bunch of little subplots that happen that are just more like mini stories within the story to keep the overall story going forward. More like where it's an actual scene within a film instead of the entire movie basically just being one long scene
What you've
and these
described is
scenes are
reminiscent of
just
a play.
transition points. What's that?
What you've described is reminiscent of a play.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. That John Ford directed all of his films as though they were plays with acts. It was clearly defined an act and a scene. And he's not the only one who had done this. Howard Hawks did this too, which is why Rio Bravo is also on this list. Technically, El Dorado is because it's just Rio Bravo. It's the same story, but a little bit different. But Rio Bravo done more specifically Rio Bravo because I think it's just better told story, better characters, and a better cast. Nothing against Robert Mitchum, but I mean Rio Bravo has Dean Martin, so and you get to hear Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson sing a duet. So just for the appeal of that alone, it sort of gets above El Dorado. And my absolute favorite movie of all time is McClintock. It's not a traditional Western. It's more like The Taming of the Shrew set in the West in late 19th century Colorado. And basically, the entire purpose of the story is for John Wayne's character George Washington McClintock to basically regain control of his house and restore his union with his wife, who has been gallivanting around doing wealthy rich woman socialite things that a woman really should not be doing without her husband, like going and dancing at the governor's ball and just going and doing really frivolous things and doing it specifically to irritate him.
Hmm.
Now, the wife is played by Maureen O'Hara, one of the greatest actresses of all of Hollywood history, probably one of the most beautiful women ever to be on screen, period, and probably the single actress that John Wayne had the absolute best chemistry with on screen. So from just a film artistic whatever criticism standpoint, that's where that comes in. But there are there are so many reasons why I think McClintock is the best movie ever that I think we would probably just need an entire episode devoted to specifically that. Basically, my just deconstruction of the film, not deconstruction, dissection of the film, and an explanation for why it's so good. And why I think, in my opinion, it is a movie with almost no flaws, if any at all. And I'll leave it at that because it's too good for me to be able to describe and do justice to, and I wouldn't want to accidentally butcher it
Okay.
in conversation.
It's a worthy list of favorites, I think.